Welcome back. Today in our Sunday Spotlight, the Luanne and Eric Book Club, one of my favorite segments, gets a new member, my son Jack. Luanne's newest young adult novel was released 5 days ago. It's called If Anything Happens to Me. Jack has read it and has some thoughts. Jack and Luanne join me in Studio A. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we came up with this idea when you were here to talk about your last book, Luanne. You said your next one was a young adult book. I said, I know a young adult, my kid.
I know, and it's such a welcome addition to our book club.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, well, let's see how it goes. You know, before we make him a full-time member, let's see how it goes. So, Jackie, you read the book. Tell us quickly what it's about and what'd you think?
It was a great book. It was about a girl whose sister was murdered. She is looking for answers and eventually finds her way into another similar mystery.
And what'd you think?
It was great. It was beautiful, very inspiring.
So your purpose here is to interview Luanne. So I know you wrote some questions down there. What do you want to know from the author of the book?
Yeah. First of all, thank you very much for that reading. I like it.
I just wanted to know, first of all, what's your differences when you're writing youth and young adult books and adult books? Like, what's the difference between the writing process?
Well, first of all, it's surprisingly easy to write a young adult book because I think I'm 16 at heart. I never really grew up. So, but you do have to write from the perspective of the teen or of the child. You can't really write from, I mean, it's almost like a rule in young adult novels that you can't write from the perspective of a parent or a grown-up, but you can have them in there, but they just can't be thinking or talking.
Yeah. Okay. The book takes place in Connecticut. I know you live on the Connecticut shoreline. What is writing books about the Connecticut shoreline? They all take place there. What does that mean to you?
Well, I guess I grew up spending all my summers in Old Lyme, and I came back to live in Connecticut after a long time of being away. And it is so inspiring. I mean, it's the salt air, it's the beach, it's like the adventures you had with your friends when you were a kid, and that you still have as at my age too.
Yeah. Your books are filled with tons of information. This one, the characters were very interested in birding. Mm-hmm. Are you interested in birding? And is your goal, while including all this information, is your goal to inspire readers to get out there, go birding, and other information?
Well, I always love it when something I write inspires somebody.
Yeah.
I never do it specifically to get them to do something, but because I've loved it so much my whole life, and I'm a member of Connecticut Audubon, and the Connecticut shoreline is an amazing place to see birds. Right now the ospreys are still there, but they're about to migrate. They're about to leave. So everyone should go down to the beach and see the ospreys.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. I noticed in a lot of your books, I mean, Jack talked about the birding, but you have, very specific details on species of birds. And in past books, you've had a Coast Guard commander, and you talked very specifically about the types of boats and the types of ships. Do you have to do research as you're doing it, or are you drawing upon stuff that you already know?
A little bit of both. Like, if something's really interested me for a long time, it's probably going to make its way into a book. But sometimes, the story leads me in places I didn't expect. So then I have to learn something completely new and different. But luckily, I, love to talk to people. So I'll reach out to somebody like a Coast Guard commander. I actually had a friend who, turned me on to somebody and gave me great information. Do you, is this, for your young adult book, you've told us in the past, you start with an idea and you don't know where the story's going to go? Completely. Is this the same kind of idea where you sat down and just started typing and didn't know where you were headed? Yeah, like I come up with a character, and the character comes into my consciousness, and then suddenly she's telling the story, and I really just kind of have to follow her, and it unfolds naturally in that way. Yeah.
Would you like to ask another question, Jack?
I thought it was, at times, it was very suspenseful. I remember one night I was reading, and my parents were like, Jack, you gotta go to bed, it's getting late. I was like, it's so good. And then I finally put the book down, and I was like, oh my gosh, it was so suspenseful. I was really so into it that I was like, I had to look at my phone a little bit before I went to bed. Don't tell my dad. Okay. But because I was so wrapped into the book, I thought that was really special. Is that is that you succeeding as a writer? First of all, that might be the best compliment I've ever gotten. That I kept you awake and then you couldn't sleep and you had to look at your phone. But thank you. Yeah, I love to write suspense and keep my readers on the edge of their seats or the edge of their beds, and hopefully wonder what's going to happen next.
We've talked before about if you think about the end user, you think about the reader. Do you think about people like Jack as you're writing the young adult books? Is there, as you're doing it, are you thinking is this going to appeal to a 13-year-old, a 16-year-old?
Yeah, I mean, I do, because like I said, you have to write from the perspective of a kid. So I do wonder, I want to make sure that they're entertained and, that it's interesting to them. So now that I know Jack, it's always going to be like, he's going to write in my mind as I'm writing.
Well, we're hoping he doesn't grow up. We don't know what's going to happen.
No.
I wonder, because you've been telling me about various young adult books the whole time we've known each other the last few years. Do writers of your stature, I mean, the number of books you've written and the awards you've won and the movies that were made, do they turn their nose up at young adult? Is it something different for you?
I'm not sure how other writers feel about it. I'm lucky. Scholastic, spoke to my agent and said, would Luanne ever write a kid's book? And I was like, right now I'm ready. And so, I just loved it. So I'm not sure if it's anything to do with stature, but it's more like if it's something that's interesting you as a writer, it's good to do it.
Right, we got about a minute left, Jack. What do you got?
First of all, what's next for you in the young adult category?
Oh, thank you for asking. I don't know. I think maybe somebody said to me once, would I ever consider using these same characters and going forward? And I might do that. So that's a possibility, but I know it's going to be set in Connecticut.
Yeah.
It'll be suspense of some sort.
Yeah.
30 more seconds. What's next? Just generally, do you have another adult book coming?
I have an adult book coming in 2025 called Until Midnight.
Is it going to be characters we recognize?
It is. It's the Reed brothers, the same investigator, detective, and Coast Guard commander brothers, and Kate will be there. And it might or might not start right where last night ended. It does.
Perfect.
Last question.
What was the ending was maybe the best part of the book? What does that mean to you, and do you start in one place or the other? Or?
Just about 20 seconds.
Okay, I think that the ending, wanted it to all come together, and I wanted it to leave with hope for the characters and for the readers. So,
yeah, you definitely achieved that, so that's great.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Eric.
Well, I'm clearly fired. Let's take a look. We have a graphic we can show you. Luanne's new young adult book released last week is called If Anything Happens to Me. There's a picture of it. We had some discussions about the cover art as well. We're going to have to save that for our next interview. You can find that cover art and that book at your favorite bookstore. If you're an adult, here are Luanne's most recent novels, Last Day, The Shadow Box, Last Night, and as you heard, Jumping Off from Last Night, coming in 2025. Listen, as I said, I'm clearly fired. Jack, excellent job. Luanne, thank you as always. We look forward to having you back.
Thank you.
Bravo. That was a great segment, and I did almost nothing.
Book club.
That's right, yeah.
That is CT24 for this week. CBS Sunday Morning is coming up next. We're about 10 minutes into a new season, fall. Boo, fall. I don't like fall, but everyone else does. We'll meet you back here in Studio A next Sunday morning.